affected you personally, it's for sure affected someone that you know and love. And whether it's myself that you pull aside, or Peter Lazar, Chris O'Shea, any of the guys who are sponsoring this tonight, we are happy to help in any way that we can. It's my pleasure to now introduce from Send Me a Friend, Imagine Recovery, and Geo Prima, Bill Taylor.
Thank you all. Hey everybody, thank you all so much for being here tonight. My name is Bill Taylor. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana. And Anders and I started Send Me a Friend back at the end of 2016. At the time, it was a very simple idea. We felt that there was a need for that in the music business, where musicians who are struggling and trying to get back to work, get on the road, trying to be sober, just to get some support for those folks. Since then, our network of volunteers has grown to over 3,000 all over the country. We have people that we work with. So we're helping people on a weekly basis that are musicians, getting back to work sober. And last year we started doing these life shops, and the idea was to put together a really interesting evening, a conversation where ideas are being shared from people that have been doing the sober thing for a long time. People that we respect, that have been able to navigate the music business soberly and effectively. This is our first time doing one in New York City, so we're thrilled to be here. And we love New York. Thank you all so much for having us. And I've been really looking forward to this. Tonight is a real gift to have these two guys with us tonight. I want to just start by thanking everybody here at Mountainside, the folks at Imagine Recovery in New Orleans, Chris and Felicia over here. They've given us space in their wonderful treatment facility in Uptown New Orleans. With Felicia's on our board of directors. Chris is our dearest advisor. We love these guys. So they came up with us from New Orleans. Peter Lazar from the Freedom Institute. And this idea just kind of started getting kicked around about 3 months ago, and it magically came into place. So we're thrilled to be here. I want to introduce Tony Sylvester right here. So doing these events, obviously you need people to help you get them done. And you need funders and supporters that believe in your mission. And Tony's been with us since day one. He's with the Gio Prima Foundation, which he's based up here, but he's in New Orleans all the time. I just wanted to acknowledge him and have him say a few words, because without you and the foundation, we just wouldn't be here tonight. Thanks, Tony.
Well, thanks, Bill. I live in New Jersey. I wish I lived in New Orleans. Maybe one day. So a couple of years ago, maybe 18 months ago, I was in Anders Osborne's kitchen with Bill, and they told me what their idea was. It was quite simple, that you are to help your friends and be there for your friends and support them. And if they slip on ice, you're supposed to help catch them and keep them upright. And it sounded like a perfect thing to be involved in. And we're grateful that you allowed us to be involved in this particular mission. And I guess over the years, I wish I had sent a friend to some of my loved ones and friends. And I perhaps didn't when I should have. But in any event, I want to thank you for welcoming me here tonight. And I appreciate your warmth and hospitality. Thanks.
Thanks so much, guys. And now from music²s, here is Jennifer Leff.
First of all, thank you to Mountainside and Geo Prima, Imagine Recovery, Freedom, and of course, Send Me a Friend. music² is thrilled that this came to New York. We've been involved in some of the life shops that have been down in New Orleans, so we're quite excited that it came on board. For those of you who are unfamiliar with music²s, we are the charitable arm of the Recording Academy, which for many means the Grammys, and we provide critical assistance to the professional music community. So that means when someone's in trouble, they can turn to us. We will provide grants for basic living needs, medical needs, dental, certainly a lot of support around addiction and recovery. We will facilitate somebody getting into rehab if they lack finances. And we will pay for sober living. We will pay for detox. We do workshops, we do panels. Happy to speak with anybody after the fact. We have some flyers in the back. And one thing I just want to mention, here in New York, we have a weekly recovery support group for folks who are in the music industry, whether currently or formerly. We're also clean and sober. We also have them around the country, one of them which is held at Imagine Recovery. So thank you all for coming, and we're looking forward to a great evening.
Thanks, Jennifer. I also just want to do a special shout out and thank you to the Freedom Institute. They're one of our sponsors for tonight. They are the oldest IOP and all intensive outpatient program in all of New York City. They do wonderful work. They're a preferred partner of Mountainside's. And part of the sort of centerpiece for getting this thing to happen here also came through my very good friend and your moderator for tonight, Peter Lazar.
Thank you, Lloyd. Lloyd's getting me a table. Welcome, everyone. So I'm very excited about this event. My name is Peter Lazar. My name is Peter. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. My people are here. Good. Okay. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker in private practice, and I work on the leadership team at Freedom Institute, which is it's the oldest outpatient program in the world, Lloyd. Thank you. Thank you, Lloyd. Anyway, and by the way, everyone in here are very cool because you're choosing this over the Oscars, so well done. Okay, I know some of you have recorded it. Anyway, I want to point out two people here that are pretty cool. Neil Asher in the back, who's been in the music industry for a lot of people get sober. And Ricky Bird, who's an amazing guitar player in recovery, and is also looking to be a substance abuse counselor, and has actually facilitated some sober songwriter workshops for us at Freedom Institute in conjunction with music.Ctr. So we really are a helping community, as you can see. All right, moving on. So I would like to introduce two brave musicians who came out of the shadows of stigma, the stigma of addiction, and showed their faces and said, hey, this is me. I'm not afraid to say who I am and show you who I am. And so I'm very excited that Anders and Charlie are here. So I'm going to first introduce Anders. By the way, can I just say real quick, from a recovery standpoint here, I'm nervous as hell. And just a little vulnerability that I'm trying to show here. You know, this is my first time doing something like this, so I'm pretty pumped, but bear with me and appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. My people. All right, so between the potency of his richly detailed songwriting, his intensely emotional, soulful vocals, and his piercing, expert guitar work, New Orleans' Anders Osborne is a true musical treasure. He is among the most original and visionary musicians writing and performing today. Guitar player calls him the poet laureate of Louisiana's fertile roots music scene. New Orleans Gambit Weekly has honored Osborne as Entertainer of the Year. Offbeat named him the Crescent City's best guitarist for the third year in a row, and the best songwriter for the second year in a row. Anybody here see him at Brooklyn Bowl recently? Yeah. That blew my hair back. I've had hair before the performance. With over 11 years of recovery, I brought my table, thank you. With over 11 years of recovery, he is the real deal when it comes to carrying the message with a genuine vulnerability that can often be found in his music. Ladies and gentlemen, Anders Osborne. Put Charlie in the hot seat.
I don't get one of those.
You will. Oh, Lloyd? Yeah. We need a microphone, man.
He's having cake, man.
Sorry?
Sorry. Lloyd, light the cake. Oh, light the cake.
Lloyd stole the microphone. All right. Lloyd's journey. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my foil for the evening. Charlie Musselwhite's journey through the blues was from his birth in Mississippi to Memphis, Chicago, and California. Arriving in Chicago in the early 60s, he was just in time for the epical blues revival. In 1966, at the age of 22, he recorded the landmark Stand Back to rave reviews. In 67, he relocated to San Francisco, where his album was being played on underground radio, and found him welcomed into the counterculture scene around the Fillmore West as an authentic purveyor of real-deal blues. He has collaborated with the likes of Government Mule, INXS, Eddie Vedder, Bonnie Raitt, Ben Harper. This man cut his musical teeth alongside Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and everyone on the south side of Chicago in the early 1960s, and has been rocking out ever since. 50 years of non-stop touring, performing, and recording have reaped huge rewards, as has over 30 years of continuous sobriety. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Musselwhite.
What's going on? We're good. We're buzzing on cake. We're going to give y'all some.
Anders brought cake.
Happy cake.
So, when they asked me to moderate this workshop, I wanted to come up with some kind of a thread that would make sense for what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, about addiction, recovery, and for those of you in the room who maybe aren't struggling with addiction, maybe you know somebody who is, or maybe you're just dealing with anxiety or fear or depression or anything that, any anchor that you might be hanging on to that can drag you under from time to time. We're here to tell you that, you can get help for that. No matter what it is, there's always a chance. And I was thinking about the, sort of a general theme for tonight, and I found this book called What Does It Mean to Be Human? By a gentleman called Richard Connolly, who I think is sitting on, where is it? Right there, Professor Richard Connolly. Sitting right there. Turns out we lived almost in the same hometown, went to the same high school, and have a lot in common, so it's pretty cool. But Charlie wrote a passage for this book, What Does It Mean to Be Human? And I'd like to read it to you, if I may, real quick. Real emotion moves me. When I hear real feelings expressed in music, I sense the human connection. My earliest recollection of the blues is hearing it in Memphis as a kid in the 50s. It came from the black workers in the fields along Cypress Creek, near the dead-end road I lived on with my mother. The emotion I felt in that music wrapped itself around me and touched my heart. It was very comforting. It gave my loneliness and sadness a sweetness, a kind of hope. Their blues expressed how I felt too. My parents were divorced. I was an only child. I felt alone as my mother worked long and late hours. I was adrift and out of place when blues floated in like a dream and touched my heart. The blues rescued me. That's when the blues overtook me. Over the years, blues have continued to express how I feel as a human being. Now, more than 40 years later, I work as a blues musician. The music I heard as a kid is still with me. It's a kind of antidote to all the things around us that lack compassion. Blues is music of the heart. It expresses all human emotions, everything life can throw you, all the ups and downs. It's all in there. When you hear the blues, it reminds your heart what it means to be human. How beautiful is that? Well done. So So, first question then to Charlie. Oh yeah. Don't knock the mic, Andrew. Charlie, you wrote that you found the blues by listening to the workers in the fields near your home. What was it about that experience that moved you? What was your impression of what they were going through and why they needed music at that time in that place?
Well, I didn't really discover it right there. It was just part of the environment. I mean, I heard street singers downtown in Memphis and on the radio. But when I was a little kid, I'm talking about like when I was like 7, 8, 9 years old. We didn't have air conditioning. So the coolest place to go when it was really hot was down by the creek. I'd lay on the sunny side of the creek and I'd hear people singing in the fields that were along the creek. And it sounded like how I felt. And it became my comforter. It was some kind of a key or something, a way out of being a lonely little kid. It gave me hope or something. I didn't know really at that age what it meant, but it appealed to me and made me feel good inside. Yeah. And today I see blues as your comforter when you're down and your buddy when you're up. It's always there for you.
So on the way down here, you mentioned, because addiction, sort of living in the shadows, there's a lot of stigma around addiction, and they created Alcoholics Anonymous and called it Anonymous for a reason. But you had a different take on why you came out public.
I really appreciate and understand why they want to be anonymous, but for me, I was drunk in public for so long, it was ridiculous to be anonymous. I mean, I'm not fooling anybody.
That's it, that works.
It's all out there. I'm not hiding.
So thinking about your story from addiction to recovery, how did music, particularly the blues, play a part in that journey? So what part did it play before you found recovery in the early phases, and then now that you have some time?
Well, it's like when I first heard it as a kid, it was a source of strength. It will get you through whatever life throws at you. It just seems like the spirit of blues is saying, don't worry, you know, you can get through it. We all got through it before. It's, you know, hang in there, buddy. You know, it's that kind of a thing that blues, it's more than just music. It's like an attitude, a way of perceiving the world, a way that it gives you a way to go.
So what was it? What was that piercing moment of clarity that you had when you said, enough is enough?
Oh, I don't know. It was not like one piercing moment. It was a ragged, lots of little moments that added up to some clarity. I mean, at the peak of imbibing, I was up to 2 quarts of liquor a day. And somewhere in there, I got the idea, you know, this is crazy. I'm going to die, you know. And the other part about it was, at this point, it didn't matter how much I drank, I still didn't feel good. But if I quit drinking, I got sick. So, and I didn't like giving a hangover a chance, so it kept me busy all day. It was my occupation, was drinking. But when I realized it was time to wrap this little number up, my approach was, well, I can't just stop. I know. I'll just wait an hour later each day before I had that first drink. And I got all the way up to noon. I thought, man, this almost calls for a drink. It was such a, it doesn't seem like much right now, but getting all the way to noon was a pretty big deal for me. And then I kept cutting down, until finally, the last hurdle. Am I answering your question?
You're not, yes.
I'm just rambling here, and I realized, what was the question? Anyhow, so the final hurdle was to get on stage and go to And I'd never been on a stage sober. Everybody I knew, we all got good and toasted before. So this was a new situation. And so one night
You're not being played off.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I'm on my way to work, I'm driving, and I always get there really early, claiming I needed a parking place, when all I want to do is get started real soon, you know. And so I'm on my way to work, I'm listening to the news, and there's a story about this little girl named Jessica McClure that fell in a well in Texas. And she's like 1 year or something, a baby. And she's down in the bottom of this well, and it's dark and it's cold, and I think she has a broken arm, and she's in a fix, you know. She could die down there. And I think it took him about 3 days to get her out. But I was struck by her bravery, because there she is down there in the bottom of the well, singing nursery rhymes. And, you know, they're letting food down to her, water, and there's a microphone, and they can communicate with her. And I thought, wow, she's being so brave in a really bad situation. And here I am on the way to do something I know perfectly well how to do. What's the big deal? Just get up there and do it, you know. And as a prayer, I really wanted her to live. And as a prayer for her, my way of prayer was I wasn't going to drink till they got her out. Now, I didn't say I was going to quit. I just said I was going to hang in there till they got her out of the well. Well, in those 3 days or whatever it took, by the time they got her out, I was out too. And so that's how I got out of the well.
Your journey sort of starts on the other side of the world, huh? In Sweden. And so why don't you tell us your story about how you got from Sweden to New Orleans, and you know, and how you found recovery.
That's my whole life.
It's okay. We can go as long as the Oscars go.
I don't know. I think I want to connect with what Charlie was saying. He said he was 7 or 8 and he remembered the music. I remember at 7 or 8, and my parents had a pump organ in their bedroom, an old, Presbyterian type of thing. And I remember playing it and pumping, and I got a note, and I got another note, and I started to put a few notes together, and then I could feel myself start crying. And so that was how I discovered music. And it was, and I remember so clearly that I knew that I had just been spoken to, and that I was not alone, and that was my language. That's what I speak. So I never had dreams or aspirations of being on stage. I just wanted to make those notes come together. That was always my aspiration. Now, to speed it up, as I got thrown into the Lion's Den to make a performance out of that feeling, that's when I really took to drugs and alcohol, especially alcohol. Alcohol was what I started with very early, and at 10, my friend and I, 10 or 11, went down in the basement. His dad was making some moonshine. I remember we were sucking on that thing, and we got so trashed and started throwing up. And as soon as we had done throwing up, I was the one that said, let's do it again. And my friend was like, are you fucking insane? And of course, I never thought about that until I got clean 11 years ago, that there was something about that off switch that happened. Not so much the fitting in and trying to be comfortable in crowds. That was part of it, but it was the off switch where this and this just took a break for a minute. And I think the combination of the music and the off switch, which was alcohol and then later on weed and cocaine before you get into, you know, freebasing and heroin and all that stuff. Because it's never enough. Once you get a taste for something that turns the stuff off, or that make you basically be able to adjust to this onslaught of life that comes at you, I mean, there's no other way to go. I mean, I can't see how any human being can get that feeling and say, no, I'm good. I don't get that. So I think that, you know, for me, I had to go through that. There's no other way for me to go through life. Now, unfortunately, it takes us, and took me anyway, to what I call the end of myself. So I got to the edge of, here's the end of who I am. There's no more of me left. It's not just death, but it's just this spiritual rotted place where you thieve and you lie and you do anything. And at the very same time as you lay in the gutter, I was homeless and living in the park. And I remember laying there and I said, this is all right. It's good. I'm good. I'm good. And I actually felt and believed it. And I think, so to bring it back to music, the thing that saved me was in rehab, was music. Once again, it came back. And you're not allowed in rehab, for you guys who are in recovery, you know this, you can't play an instrument. You can't, because it's related to the things that you did when you were getting fucked up. So somebody had to smuggle a guitar in, and they busted me, and they took it, and it was missing 2 strings anyway, so it didn't matter. But then I discovered in one of the hall rooms they had a piano that had, I think, literally like 7 or 8 notes that worked. And I was in there every spare moment I had, in between, you know, meetings and therapy and all the stuff you do in there, and washing dishes and making your bed like a maniac. I was writing songs. And I think that was the aha moment I had, that this is not my job. This is what's saving me right now. The music is, again, like it was, it's my language. I can continue, but I'd like to hear some more from Charlie's. We can come back to me in a minute.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So my next question then is, so what was the first year of recovery like for you? Was it easy? Was it challenging? Some people call it the pink cloud year.
Yeah, I never heard that expression, but I certainly recognized it when you said it.
Yeah.
At first it was like, wow, just brand new. I mean, everything was like being here for the first time or something. Colors are real brilliant. Food tasted better. It just felt so good to be alive and fully alive, not just all tamped down with the different drugs and things I thought I was using to make me feel good. Actually, it was making me feel good at all. So it was really, and I still have a bit of that every time, man. Look up at the sky and say, wow, it's really blue. That's great, I love that. You know, it's not just in a fairy book, it's real. I love it, blue sky. How perfect could it be? So little things like that pop into your consciousness. And I think it's, you know, from being sober and older than something like, I don't ever be wrong. I'm pretty good with how it has worked out.
Well done. So, Anders, I think you had a bit of a different experience in your first year.
Yes.
No pink cloud.
No. No. They gave me antidepressants, and so I would fall to my knees and start bawling. Like literally, I felt like I was 6 years old, and I don't want to say girl, because boys cry probably more than girls do, but it was a very strange emotion. So they, psychiatrist I talked to said, I think you are bipolar. So we're giving you the wrong thing. Now once you go down that road, now a whole different can of worm opens up. So now I'm on Tegretol for, seizures. Yeah. Is this coming and going here? Yeah. It needs a new battery. And so they gave me Tegretol and lithium and Seroquel, and they were throwing a bunch of stuff at me, and I said, I can't sleep. And they're like, well, we got something for that too. So, and it wasn't drugs, it was antipsychotic stuff. So in that whole process, I gained 50 pounds. I was almost 220. I had maybe 4 hours of lucid thinking, where I was like, okay. Took me hours to get out of bed, and I was very dark, very depressed about not having an off switch. But I went to meetings once or twice every day for 14 months. I remember the determination. I was going to a meeting. I was riding my bicycle, my wife's bicycle.
Why don't you use this one?
Yeah, this one needs a battery.
We can hear you okay this way too, I guess.
Yeah, either one. Check on that one and see what's happening there. So, the determination, knowing how the drugs and alcohol don't work anymore, because that's kind of what you realize, or I did. So the chain would break, so I'm halfway to the meeting, and in this fog, instead of leaving the bike, because it was my wife's bike, I put the bike on my back and I walked 2 miles to the meeting with the bicycle on my back to get to the meeting. That's the kind of stuff you do when you need to get sober. And I'm not bragging about it, I'm saying that's the thing that happens when you get clean. Something is so determined to know what life is really about, because where I am is not it. This can't be it. So, through those 14 months, that's basically all I did. Meetings, step work, meetings, calling people. And I had to start touring because we were in bankruptcy and foreclosure. So I had to try to save the house. So I was touring 6 days after I got out of rehab. And my drummer was a heroin addict. My tour manager was my coke dealer. And anyway, the whole band was full of good stuff. And then me.
So how did you, can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Should we skip this?
Yeah.
I'll take it. So during that first year, what did you need to do to locate your humanity?
So that's kind of where this came in.
Yeah.
After a few months, I start kind of thinking about, is this what I really want to do? And then it brought me back to the moment of, yeah, it is what I do. Doesn't mean that I love it all the time, especially the touring. It's not my favorite. But I love music, and the people I meet, both the audience and the people, they're my people. Like, we're kind of the same group of guys, So that's my people. So I thought of all kinds of stuff. AA was very helpful. But what I did was I would go to meetings and I would make a ton of phone calls. Like, I would always text. This is, basically in the beginning of the smartphones for me. Before that, I hadn't had a lot of that stuff. So I was texting people, and I still do. Same group of people that have remained sober or not OD or anything. We're still talking every week, and that's how we do it. And then I also figured out that I needed to set up new boundaries, which is, let's say you're in a position to have your own green room. which is an advantage that most bands or musicians don't have. They don't have a green room. They just wait on the side of the stage, you know, like Beale Street and Bourbon Street. So when I work down there, you just sit at the bar and wait for the next set. So it's a very different scene. So I would get to the gig really late, and I would leave immediately after. So I would design certain ways of being so that I could manage to be there, you know. That was a big part. And then I think I also started to look at the overall 24 hours of interest, which is because I drank all the time before, like Charlie said, you know, it's a full-time job to do that stuff. So now you really don't know what to do with your time. So I think that was a big part, was to learn from other people in recovery, especially musicians. What do they do during the day? So all of a sudden I started going to museums again, go for walks, or listen to audiobooks, because reading was too difficult. I couldn't retain anything I read the first 2-3 years. Nothing. I mean, it didn't matter what I read. I didn't understand what I was reading at all. So basically taking advice from everybody else and then just follow that without questioning it, not making up my own version of it, just doing what they tell you to do.
But you had to, and maybe this is something you can speak on as well, sort of in that early phase where you're just kind of getting some marbles back into your bag, so to speak, on how to deal with life on life's terms. You find yourself having to sort of redefine your strengths or your ability to connect with people and to set those healthy boundaries and figure out, you know, just how to relate to people. What was that like?
I remember like just going into a hardware store. I didn't want anybody talking to me. If I saw the sales guy coming in my direction, I was out the door. I mean, I just couldn't, you know, leave me alone, I'll find what I want. Don't talk to me. That's how, if going down the street, people speak to me, I just, why do they speak to me? I don't know these people. I mean, it was, I can't even explain it. Now I enjoy it. Hey, how you doing? It's so easy, it seems natural. Also, it was a freedom in that to be able to be relaxed with who you are and where you are. Whatever that fear was about, I don't know. It was there. But I listened to a lot of Bob Earl tapes. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He was so funny, and he'd keep me laughing about the situation. That gave me a lot of ways to go and deal with stuff. And I went to meetings. I didn't like meetings where I got called on. I wouldn't go to those. If I had to go to a regular meeting, I'd stare at my shoes the whole time. And I'd try to keep people between me. I didn't want to see me. I didn't want to be called on anything. I'm not here today. Those things were real helpful. I read a lot of things, different kind of religious stuff. I'm not really religious, but you'd find stuff that was inspiring. You know, somebody's story, what they did. Oh yeah, that makes sense. I could apply that to.
Let's try that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kept looking for things that inspire me and keep me going.
I know. Thank you. So can we let's shift to creativity, if we you guys know something about that. So a lot of us in the mental health field, we work with performing artists, and there's sort of this consistent, I would argue, mythological fear that those who give up the drink or the drug will lose their ability to connect with the human experience and therefore lose their creative edge. So when you arrived at the moment that you had to make the decision to be or not to be sober, were you confronted by this dilemma? And what advice would you give to artists who are in that same struggle? Yeah, we'll start with you, Charlie.
I didn't feel so much about worrying about being creative. figured that was always there. I just felt like I wasn't going to be the life of the party anymore, you know. And that was being able to, when I was drinking, I was able to just feel normal. I could talk to people. And being sober with no alcohol to help me, I'm just sort of an introvert. I just sit and let other people talk. And that's okay too. I didn't feel anymore like I had to be home, had to perform in this social kind of thing. It's all okay. If I ain't drinking, it's all okay. The rest of it's just fine. It'll take care of itself.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just another good old day to try.
It's all worked out okay for you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it, but it's a pleasure.
And Anders, what about you? Did you have that issue around creativity, and any advice for the new folk?
I mean, a bit maybe, but my thing was more related to my uncomfortableness to be on stage. That was, like the creativity, I would say was the opposite. When I was using, like I said before, that was my off switch. So my creativity was much more narrow. When I'm clean and clear, it's almost too endless, the possibilities of creating. It's so vivid and so much coming that can be overwhelming. I usually work on 5 or 6 songs at the same time because I just don't know where to put everything, right? So for me, I knew I was less creative when I was fucked up. But I liked that because I could just go into one topic and kind of stay with that. And it was usually more hip-oriented. I don't want to say dance because it's just more like here when I was getting drunk. When I'm not, and I still struggle with that, I get very cerebral. I'm also an introvert, so everything is kind of like, it lives inside. So my struggle, to answer your question, was more about how to be like this. How can I be me? And Ivan, my friend, said one time after a meeting, he said, hey, it's a funny thing, man. All those years, this is what we were looking for. We did all that shit to feel like this. And we never did, right? So when you get truly sober, this really is, like he was saying, the sky, all the things that come to life. Now, when you are an entertainer, so you plug in the guitars and the harmonicas and the microphones, you get on stage, you got lights on you, that's not necessarily an art form, that's entertainment. So these people are not looking to be deep most of the time. They're looking to off switch. They want you to help them turn it off. So when you, as a creative person or an artist of some sort, you're supposed to entertain now sort of a smaller portion of who you are and what you think your art is. That's been my struggle. How do I bring it down to just stay on track, make sure you know what you're here to do, because they need it. You're here for them, not for you. Okay, and that's a very different approach, and so that's still what I struggle with. That's why I go to meetings, that's why I do these things, that's why I meditate, exercise, try to eat right, read. You know, you just, people know stuff, so you just got to listen to other people more than you talk, I think.
Is there a difference between what it was like before you got sober when you were on stage and how you connected with the audience and now?
Yeah, I connect now, I did that.
You didn't?
No, I was in my own little, I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. What about you, Charlie? Is that similar for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't want to. Now I can look.
Yeah.
I can look everybody in the face. It's okay. Before I didn't want to look at anything.
Yeah.
It was. Didn't want to be there.
No.
But that's okay.
So Anders,
Yeah, actually, I remember thinking. about quitting drinking was harder than actually doing it. Like, after I finally quit and had a little perspective on it, like, wow, what was that all about? It's so much this is easier. What was I doing?
What were you doing?
Killing myself to feel good.
Yeah.
Any way I could figure out to do it.
Well, glad you did.
If I couldn't get alcohol on Sunday in some state, I'd go down to the drugstore and get a big family-sized bottle of NyQuil.
Oh.
I get the green and the red.
And cherry.
And it's 20% off. Just like Thunderbird.
So, Anders, one of the things that strikes me about your songs is that they kind of cut to the heart of emotion. You know, it says this is how I feel in this moment. This is what's going on, and we in recovery can spend years trying to figure out what we're feeling, when we're feeling it, why we're feeling it, in any context. So, how did recovery teach you to do that and translate real feelings, real emotions into your lyrics?
I think my wife taught it to me. There's that moment that comes to my mind. I mean, yeah, the thing that comes to mind is I was writing a song, and I had a chorus, and I had sort of an idea of a verse. And the chorus was real pretty, and part of that was mind of a junkie, so the things that I go through, and then I would ramble, kind of spewing lines in the verse. And it was like Mansion on the Hill, and I kept saying certain things. And I played it for my wife, which I usually do in the kitchen, and she goes, I like, the chorus is pretty, but that's not how you feel at all. Why don't you write exactly how you feel? And I went, okay. So I went back, and then I wrote exactly how I feel, like the sweats and the anger and the panic attacks, and I hate the big book, and I don't want to make amends. Like I just spewed every little, I get tattoos when I'm bored, I don't know what to do, I just everything. And that was the first moment, I think, where I realized that I could and should write about what I'm going through in recovery. I shouldn't be a songwriter, I should be a documenter of this emotion. And that changed a lot, because I didn't have to, rhymes went out the window, the hat of being a writer went out the window, and I started to use my language, because this is my experience. And that never stopped after that. That was a turning point. That was about 2 years into recovery, where it made sense. I wasn't trying to sculpt songs anymore. I'm just basically documenting what's happening. But I'm always looking for nice melodies. I'm a sucker for beautiful songs. Yeah, I love songs.
Thank you. So, one of the things that we know about the disease of addiction is that if you look at it like a sort of like a living organism inside you that feeds off of loneliness. It wants to keep you separate from the people, places, and things that love you or that are healthy for you, that are good for you. And the road can be a lonely place when you're touring. So, Charlie, can you tell us a little bit about how you handle the road?
TV.
There you go. Do you have an anti-loneliness song?
If I do, I don't remember. Maybe I should work on one.
All right.
Well, I read, I go for walks, I watch TV. Keep occupied. Don't let it catch up with the demons. They're always working around. Like if I walking through a supermarket, and there's big stacks of, now they got all these designer beers I never even heard of. And they all put these great labels on them. And I'm looking at all this stuff, and my brain is going, you got a night off? Go ahead. You're clean. It's okay to drink now.
Yeah.
It's like Tom Waits said, I quit smoking, so it's okay to have a cigarette. My brain is doing the same thing. You quit, so it's okay. So I have to keep saying, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. It's like, I don't know what that's about, but I think I'm getting getting him in a headlock, and he's saying less and less. He started screaming at me like, I was just kind of bumping. It's amusing. I choose to be abused. These thoughts try to influence me. When I was drinking, my distortions, my perceptions were so distorted that I wasn't really dealing with the real world. I was dealing with this world in my head that I thought was real. And then after I got out of there, got away from it, and I look back at it, it's like, wow, that was fucked up. Excuse my language. Again, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, you know, thank you. So, Anders, so I'm going to throw that out to you. What do you do to take care of yourself on the road? And do you have an anti-loneliness song?
No, I think we're gonna write it later.
Okay, good.
I don't know, I think to battle loneliness on the road, you said?
Yeah. Or anywhere.
I mean, loneliness, you know, I've been married over 20 years and it can get real lonely.
Sometimes it's okay.
Yeah, and I was just gonna get to that. I said, I think what I do is I'm learning to embrace all the emotions that come and accept them and go, that's okay. I gotta say, my wife, who doesn't have the alcoholism or addiction part, she's really good at just like accepting what is happening, ride through it and move on. So she's very helpful. You know, I text her. We don't talk too much on the road. We try not to on purpose because then I feel like I'm splitting myself between home and the road. But we text pretty much every day, every other day. Like I think TV is a big one, like Netflix, and I love checking out all the different, you know, gurus that are on there. They're really bright people on YouTube. And if you search long enough, you land around Alan Watts, and he has a lot of good stuff. I like Alan. But so I stay focused on that. I meditate, exercise a lot. I do daily meditations, sometimes, you know, up to 4 or 5 of them, depending on how stressed I am. If I fly, I try to meditate on the plane. That's been the biggest, I think, help lately. Is the meditation part. I also try to challenge myself. So when I'm used to saying no or being an introvert and going, I don't want to deal with this, I force myself to go, no, you know what? Say yes to this for a second. And then I go, all right, let's see what's happening. Because then I can at least feel like it's my reward to say, no, I'm going to pull out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I never do it, then I think about that, like, wow, I should have said yes. I should have gone on that invitation. I'm such an idiot. And then I get that guy started, which is...
So there are times when you're both out there, kind of on the road doing your thing, and you're just lonely, or you're alone, and that's just the way it is. So you have things that you do to take care of yourself in those moments where you find comfort, but it's okay to feel those feelings. It's okay to feel lonely, it's okay to feel fear, because these are feelings that we have. So that makes a lot of sense. And so you, Anders, created Send Me a Friend for guys like you who are out on the road and going, hey, you know, I'm doing this thing on my own. And so what was your inspiration for that?
I was playing at, I don't remember what it was, some event at French Quarter Tipitinas, and I was really, really nervous about playing, especially at home. And then 2 guys from the AA group, my home group at the time, they said, one of them was a big fighter, been to jail many times, burly guy, and then another guy. And they said, if you want to, we can come and sit with you during the show. And I was like, oh, no, that's okay. No, we'll just come sit with you. And I couldn't figure out what that meant. Like, what do you mean I'm performing? Well, they did literally that. They sat next to the stage on 2 chairs. And every time I looked over, there they were. And I was like, why does this feel so good? And I realized I felt accountable, because people would throw me drugs on stage, or shots would come up, and all that stuff would, continue, especially the first year, before people realized that I'm not using it anymore.
Does that still happen?
Yeah, it happens, but it's not as common now, and it doesn't face me now. It's not for me. The switch has happened for me, and that's no longer. I don't get bothered by people drinking in my face. I don't care. But I looked at them, and I realized I was accountable, and I also felt safe. So that kind of got me thinking the idea of, what if we have a whole network of people where, in the early recovery, because I remember playing on Burger Street, and I did 11 sets some days. So you start with 5 sets, breakfast through midday, then you push the amp up to another strip joint, and you play it in the strip joint, and then you play the patio at the end, so by 4 a.m. You now played all day, and there's no green room, you're just sitting 20, sometimes it's 25-minute breaks, but usually 20-minute break between the sets. So I was thinking, those are the cats that need help. I have a green room. These guys have nothing. So if you're a trumpet player on Burger Street, how the hell are you going to do this? You probably don't have a college degree, or like me, I don't even have a high school diploma. So what kind of job could I do instead of playing music? So that spawned the idea of, we should set up a data kind of collective of names with people that are sober that can come out if you need someone to come sit with you. Not to get you sober, you have to be sober, but help you go back to work. So I called my friend Bill Taylor, and I said, I got an idea. And then about 4 years later, we managed to get it off the ground.
And that was how long ago?
3 years ago.
So, I like to, one thing I love about being in recovery is to hear the stories about miracles that happen, miracle moments that happen, where something happens and you're like, holy crap, I cannot believe that, that went on. And, so the other day, Wednesday, I was having a really rough day at work, or, a bunch of stuff going on, and, I get to 125th Street train station to take Metro North back home to Westchester, and I get on the wrong train, and it's going to Stanford, and I'm so screwed. And the conductor walks up, I show him my ticket, he's like, yeah, you're on the wrong train, genius. And I crack a joke like, haha, can you believe I don't even drink? And he looks at me and he says, neither do I. And I said, are you a friend of Bill? Which is code for like, are you in the rooms of 12 steps? And he goes, yeah, I've got 30 years. I said, well, I just got 14 years this month. He says, give me a minute. He goes, he finishes his card, he comes back, and we have a meeting right there at the vestibule. This happened last week. So this is like one of those things, some people call them God shots, miracle moments, whatever. So is there anything like that for you that kind of resonates? And, do you have a story like that?
Well, the story I already told you about the girl falling in the middle of it.
Yeah.
That was a real
Yeah.
turning point. Her bravery gave me the insight to my problem, didn't amount to about that much. And so it kind of gave me a perspective and got me turned around.
Yeah. Perspective is the true gift of recovery.
Yeah.
But what about you, Anders?
There are a few, but there's one recently. I was meditating in my backyard, and I was about 2-3 days before New Year's Eve. And then I asked, sometimes I exclude God, and I just talk to the universe. I go in my own, I create my own religion, like a true alcoholic. But this time I went back to old school, and I said, God, I know I ask to be of service a lot, but usually it's out of selfish reasons, because I want to do something that makes me happy. I want you to grant me the opportunity to truly be of service, and I'm ready. The next day I get a phone call and a text from 2-3 different people saying, so-and-so is on her way out. she's gonna die. Her liver is completely shut down. She's got cirrhosis. And this is someone we've tried to get sober for 6 years. She's lost everything. Child, you know, her kid, everything's gone. And so I get all these texts saying that's it, it's over. She's completely yellow. She's got jaundice. Her eyes are coming out of her head, and she looks awful. And so I went, thank you. Here we go. So I'm thinking now, I'm going to help out here. So everybody goes, you know, don't bother. She's not going to get, she says she doesn't want to get sober, blah, 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 blah. She needs to be sober at least 6 months before she can get on a liver transplant thing. And I go, well, so what are we all saying? Are we going to sit here and watch her die? And then none of the people I was with answered back. And I went, well, I'm doing something. You don't have to be part of it. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to do something. I didn't know what it was. And just as I was going to go to the hospital and visit her, I said, I got to call somebody in sobriety. Because that's one of the gifts, is you know when you're about to do something, call a few of your sober friends. Even if it's a good thing you're going to do, just check in, because you make weird decisions.
You do.
Yeah, just weird. And I can't explain why they're weird. They feel so logical. But my wife will remind me, anyway, so I make this phone call to my friend out in Los Angeles, and he goes, oh, I can't believe it. It's perfect. It's perfect. I'm like, what is perfect? I'm here with this lady. She's got 36 years sober. She's like the grand lady of female recovery. She helps all women. She works with women specifically, and she's really sick. I was just stopping by her house to give her some chicken soup. Talk to her. I'm like, okay. I'm talking to this strange woman, and I start crying. I go, I just don't know what to do with my friend, and it just wish she could get sober. She goes, hey, shut up. And she stops me, and she's kind of rude. I'm going to win it. She goes, I've been there many, many times. You are not going to get her sober. Okay? It's not going to happen. That's not what you need to do. You need to go to her room and bring that love you just showed, and bring that light, and be present. Be in the room with her, whether she's dying or not, whether she's doing, and she just poured this over me. So again, the odds of this lady who's gone through this many, many, many times, watched people die in her arms from cirrhosis, right? So I went, okay, I will. So like a little 12-year-old, I felt like I'd been corrected. So I went in just like that. And the woman's mother was there, the woman's daughter was there, the drunk boyfriend shows up and can't even speak, they're all there. The teenage daughter's screaming and cussing, you have fucked up my life, you gotta get sober. And the mother's just shaking, and I just literally kept saying, so tell me more about how you're feeling. And I just kept asking about her and ignoring, and then try to really present love and light. About an hour and a half into it, an hour plus, she goes, and I'm talking, if you've seen cirrhosis, this is not a fun thing to see. This shit is ugly. I mean, it's wicked. Lifts her little arm and she grabs my hand and goes, "Hey." And she's 8 years younger than me. And she's acting like she's 110. She goes, I have to change my habits, huh? I go, yeah. Maybe so. So to get to the end of the story, she's now in rehab. And she's clean and she's taken to it. And it took a few weeks. I got a lot of help from all these people that are here tonight putting this on, but we all came together. I made the right calls. So basically I ended up asking, so are you saying you want to get clean? I think so. No, I want you to say yes, and I'll start to put it in motion. She said yes, and now she's doing great. So we'll see how she does.
Love and light, that's what it's all about. It's coming from the both of you. We have time for a couple of questions from the audience.
I just wanted to go back and touch on the creativity thing that you brought up before, especially Charlie, you who were somebody who was around the Bay Area, late 60s, early mid-70s, where back then substances of all different types were seen sort of as gateways to creativity, rather than, you know, things that would hold you back or negatively influence creativity. So where does that sort of flip over from using substances to like sort of open doors of creative things, not so much as on stage performance, but you know, writing, thinking, music, creative. Like at what point does that sort of like stop working and go off the cliff? So to speak?
You talking about LSD?
That was part of that. One part. Any substances.
No, mushrooms,
You know,
not
anything
LSD.
that was, you know, around at that time, you know.
Well, I like to think that during those years, on some occasions, some doors or perception got open. But really, in the end, all that you can do on your own. You really don't need some help. If you got something to say, let it come out, and it will, it'll be good. You don't need acid or alcohol. I mean, it might feel fun for a minute, but in the end, it's not the answer. Sometimes you come up on it, oh, it's the greatest idea. You write all this stuff down, the next day you look at it like, it's a gibberish. It's always been wrong. So, it makes you think
Yes.
but it ain't. That's just how it was for me.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Anders. A few years ago, we were at Jazz Fest and you were performing and you clearly had a terrible issue with your back. Your guitar was propped on a stand. And I'm curious how, in recovery, when you have to deal with health issues, and where that struggle, how you battle that struggle of not being able to take any painkillers, what you do as an alternative, and how emotionally do you cope with it? Because I imagine that having had a back issue myself, knowing that you just need help one way or another.
Good question. My recovery is like one part of my life. My life outside that is the bigger picture. So I think as I got more and more clear-headed, I'm going to not call it recovery, I'm going to say as I came to and started to feel all the emotions more appropriately, then you start to realize that back pain comes from somewhere else. Shoulder pain, migraine, depression, anxiety, sleeplessness, overeating, all these things. This is all one and the same thing. And as I now work on all my physical pains and ailments and digestive stuff and whatever, and spent thousands and thousands of dollars.
And none of that compromises your sobriety?
No,
Those types of medication?
No, and also when you're sober, truly sober, as I am, 2 ibuprofen is massively effective. It does a whole different thing. And you also figure out that certain, like Aleve does nothing for me. It's the ibuprofen. It is something about the anti-inflammatory, which then, for me, I've now learned that has to do with anger and rage. I need to cool down my body. So now we take cold showers instead. We do breathing techniques. So all this is the growing of not just being sober, it's evolving as a human, which I couldn't do on drugs and alcohol. I was completely stuck at 14. End of story. And nothing had moved since I was 14.
Wow.
So when you come out of an addiction, you are that age. I responded to every conflict just like that. Just completely the same way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
One more? You're in a more, like a better place emotionally through recovery.
Yeah, I am now.
What was the transition like?
Well, I just kept, trying to think positive and read things that were uplifting. A lot of times, I don't know where I came up with this, but if things were getting me down, or if we just had physical pain, I just said, I dig the pain, dig it, make friends with it.
Yeah.
And it, somehow that was like putting a balloon, pin in a balloon,
Yeah.
and just deflate it.
That's so true.
Dig the pain. Then the pain doesn't have any power. So I hope that's an answer.
No, that's great. I love that answer. I love it. It's embracing what's really happening.
Yeah, dig it.
Yeah, dig it. I think that's great. My transition was very recent. It was 2 years ago. So the first 8-9 years was, I moved my focus around to exercise in the gym and touring and ambition and getting bigger crowds and getting this and better, everything. I just went into society full on. And then 2-3 years ago, that reached its end, and I went, I don't want any of this. This has nothing to do with why I'm alive. This is a societal dream that I'm trying to fulfill for society as a whole, as a context. Does that make sense? Well, that's a whole different level of recovery now, because now, basically, I am where I should have been probably in my 20s, which is, what do I want with my life? It's certainly not to be famous. Who would want that? I mean, it's an insane request to your own life. To be famous, why would you want that? Right? To have a ton of money, to do what? You see, you start to put it all together. And that transition, I think that comes for everybody at some point, hopefully, whether they drink or not. That's part of, that's what I was saying with the bigger picture. Recovery is me not picking up. Never again. It's not an option, because I couldn't have this conversation with you. I just couldn't. I left my kids for days. I mean, the addiction part is like this, the horror of the things that I have done is unmanageable. I just can't even put it together in my head anymore. So, drinking is out. Let's just remove that from the table. It doesn't even have to be part of a discussion. And then you get into what I think you're asking. What's the emotional recovery? Well, that is now picking up your true, authentic wishes for yourself. What do you want? I still don't have a clue. I'm almost 54. I have no idea what I want. But this is part of, what I think can maybe lead me to something. I'm swinging in the dark, is what I'm saying.
May we always be on that journey. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. That's great answers. So just to sort of wrap up, first of all, I want to say thank you to our co-sponsors, Mountainside Treatment Ctr, Freedom Institute, Imagine Recovery, the Geo Prima Foundation, music@s, and Send Me a Friend. And of course, I want to thank Anders Osborne and Charlie Musselwhite. I want to end with what he wrote in his book, What It Means to Be Human. To be human is to be in transformation, ever changing. We are connected by physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual forces more powerful than ourselves. We experience each moment of our lives with a sense of relative powerlessness. We choose what we do within the limits of time and space, culture and society, this and that. As we live our lives moment to moment, awareness of powerlessness can paradoxically empower us and can allow us to see what and who and where we really are. This awareness is possible in each moment. With this specifically human awareness, our capacity for empathy and compassion connects us, consciously and unconsciously, to other human beings, to other living things, to all life. Here we are. Go with courage, everyone. Good night.